Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speeder, and today we're going to be going over the best item builds to gain MMR. I've chosen the literal 5 best builds and we'll break them down from starting items all the way to the late game choices so that you all can have the strongest builds in every ranked match you queue into. Specifically today, we will be looking at GH's Mirana, XXS's Razor, EE's Spectre, Whitemon's Riki, and Noon's Drow. Let's get into it. And now I want to tell you guys a little bit about Dota Plus from Overwolf. This is a free stats app you guys can download right now that's going to show you your stats for the last 3 months. So if you want to know your games played, your MMR, your win rate, your XPM, your GPM, all of these things you need to track to know how well you're doing and what you need to change to gain MMR, you can get for absolutely free. On top of that, the biggest reason why you need to download Dota Plus, at least for me, is the ban suggestions. Basically, it tells you what the enemy team is good at. It tells you their best heroes, what they've been winning with. You just ban it. You might be wondering why your good heroes, why your best heroes keep getting banned. It's because of Dota Plus. The enemy team is using it and banning out your best heroes. So go download Dota Plus right now, and I'll see you guys there. Alright, so let's start off by talking about GH's Mech Mirana. Mech and Guardian Greaves have quickly risen to become one of the most feared items in Dota 2 right now. Greaves in particular received a major buff, so let's talk about GH's Mech Mirana. The starting item build is going to be Stick, Tangos, a Fairy Fire, 2 branches, and wards. For Mirana, it's all about stats in the early game. This hero has some of the best base stats and best attack range in the game, so it's all about maximizing this and really right-clicking the position 5 as much as you possibly can. From there, you're going to pick up Wand, Boots, and Raindrops. Of course, Clarities if you need them. Wand in particular is important from Mirana because you're going to be starting with branches, so naturally they transition well into the Wand. Boots are boots. I'm going to say that a couple times this video, so I'll probably skip over that. Raindrops, because Mirana is a pretty squishy hero. She's an agility hero at the end of the day, and so Raindrops giving you burst HP is very, very nice. On top of that, Mirana is extremely reliant on mana, which is why she doesn't only need Raindrops, but also needs the next item you will be buying, which is Mana Boots. After Mana Boots, you buy Mech. I've seen a couple players go Mech first before actually completing the Mana Boots, but you will have mana problems if you do this. So typically, as GH does here, go Mana Boots and then into Mech. And the nice thing about this is Mana Boots are great for Mirana, Mech is just one of the best items in the game right now, and both of these items build into Guardian Greaves, so it's a very natural build-up. And then getting into the mid-to-late game, GH in his game in particular had limited catch. His team really lacked initiation, and so he picked up a Eul Scepter. Now of course, this is great because you can leap in, Eul's the enemy target, leap out, and arrow them. But if your team has an Axe, a Centaur, a Tidehunter, all these initiation heroes that can set up with the arrow, you don't have to go Eul's, and instead you can opt for something like Force Staff, Pipe of Insight, Vlad's, whatever your team needs. Typically you're just going to be opting for whatever aura item looks best. Alright, next let's cover XXS's Bloodstone Razor. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with this build, but if you're not, let's go over it. So starting off, we have Tangos, 2 branches, a Quelling Blade. You heard that right, a Quelling Blade. This is particularly important if you're laning against a very popular Treant right now, but it's good on Razor in general because this hero's last hitting is extremely hard at level 1. You have a pretty mediocre animation and very bad base damage. From there, you complete the starting items with Slippers and a Circlet. After that, what you're going to do is rush a Wraith Pad. This helps out with Razor's really bad starting armor. From there, you're going to pick up 2 mangoes on average. Some players like buying 3, some players buy 1. XXS bought 2, and honestly, this item's just important on Razor. In the early levels, Razor tends to struggle. He gets bullied out of lane. Mangoes give you some of the best HP regen in Dota right now, and Razor tends to need a lot of mana, especially considering you'll be buying Mana Boots later on, which are actually going to be one of the next items. You can drop the Mana Boots, eat the mangoes, and get extra benefits from it. Now in his lane, he went Wraith, mangoes, and then for another Wraith Band. If your lane is pretty good, going for double Wraith Band for the attack speed and armor, and of course agility, lets you get really aggressive with Static Link at level 2, and this can let you pop off in the lane. If the lane's a little bit harder, you can rush Ring of Health, or you can go for an early Boots to disengage. In XXS's game, he was having a pretty good start, so he went Wraith, Mango, Wraith, into Boots, After Boots, he went Ring of Health. After Ring of Health, he went Mana Boots. After Mana Boots, he completed the Ring of Health in a Vanguard, which isn't good on ranged heroes, but it's good on Razor because you're going to be disassembling it later on. From there, he picked up his Shard. After his Shard, he went Bloodstone. And then from Bloodstone, this is where we get into the more complex items or different builds you can go. Because frankly, Razor can buy almost anything after Bloodstone. And no, I'm not just saying that. You literally can buy almost anything after Bloodstone. But let's talk about the most common build in XXS's build. So he went Bloodstone into Hood, right? When you disassemble Vanguard, only one component, the Vitality Booster, is going to be built into the Bloodstone. The Ring of Health will then be built into Pipe, most likely, and he went for Hood. He actually didn't go Pipe, he went for Hood into Eternal Shroud. After Eternal Shroud, because the game was going well, he bought Boots of Travel so he could push in waves and farm a lot with the help of his Shard. And after that, he bought a Kaya Songe, because Kaya, in particular, amps your spell lifesteal. Both Eternal Shroud and Bloodstone play off the Shard, which just procs like crazy and gives you a ton of HP back, and this works very well with spell lifesteal. From there, honestly, things can kind of get wacky. I've seen players go Blade Mail, you can go Blink Dagger if the enemy team has something like a Drow Ranger that counters you, maybe a Terrorblade, a Sniper that counters you, and you need to get on top of them and link them. You can go a Blink, you can go Lotus if they have a lot of roots or something you need to reflect. There's a lot of different items you can go on Razor, but the most important ones are the first three. And before we move on to the next build, make sure you guys smash the like button for more top build videos and comment down below what hero and build you've had the most success with in your recent pubs. Alright, next let's talk about everyone's favorite safe lane player, and that's Eternal Envy. And this is his Mango Spectre. So the item you're going to be starting with, or the items, are mangoes. In fact, his starting items were a Quelling Blade and mangoes. No tangos, no branches, just mangoes. I'm not kidding. He had a Quelling Blade and mangoes. Now from there, if the lane is going to be a little bit difficult, you can buy tangos, or you can buy more, well, you guessed it, mangoes. Nah, but in all seriousness, this is literally the build. This is the meta build right now. Spectre has very good base armor. You have good base HP regen. You combine this with the HP regen from mangoes and only one set of tangos at max. And the fact that you can take Dispersion, which at level 1 lets you block 8% of all incoming damage, and your hero becomes relatively unkillable. And that is why you're going to rush a Blade Mail. The main idea is you're not killing anyone in the lane with mangoes. They're basically all for defensive purposes. You don't even really want to eat them. Like, optimally, you eat none of them during the lane. I'm not kidding. You really want to try not to eat them. That is the purpose. So he went mangoes into Blade Mail, and the first component he bought for the Blade Mail was the Broadsword, just to last it better in lane. From there, he bought the Chainmail. Of course, you can buy the Chainmail first if you're laning against something like, I don't know, Nature's Prophet or Legion Commander, and they're going to click the heck out of you. You can, of course, pick up the extra armor, but Spectre typically doesn't need it. Yeah, so he completes the Blade Mail. After Blade Mail, he bought Brown Boots and then rushed in Ags. Now, most players will go Treads after the Blade Mail and then Ags, just because they want the Treads so that when they haunt in, they have a little bit of attack speed to work with Desolate. But yeah, he just doesn't care. He just rushed in Ags. And what the Ags does is on a 40-second cooldown, you can haunt or mini haunt anywhere on one target. It casts a Spectral Dagger on them, and you can get really, really active with this build. You're basically a frontline tank, and it's honestly extremely powerful. From there, the build is kind of non-negotiable. You have to go Manta style to work with your Desolate, and then things get a little bit weird. In his game, he went Abyssal Blade. However, you can go Scotty if the enemy has a lot of ranged heroes, or Orchid if they have a lot of mobility heroes, such as Storm Spirit or Ember Spirit that you want to get on top of and kill. The next build we're going to be talking about is Whitemon's Riki support with a Shard. Yeah, I mean, basically, you're just trying to buy the Shard. You're a support trying to buy a 1400 gold item. You basically rush it. But the starting items are Orb of Venom, Tangos, a Salve, Mangoes, and Wards. Some players buy branches. He didn't opt to do that this game, but basically, it's an Orb of Venom because your hero has pretty good base stats and you can trade with weak ranged position 5s, and then it's a ton of regen because Riki's not that good in the lane. You need to play relatively defensive, depending on the matchups, and honestly, a lot of the time, position 4 Riki is just dragging waves. You're not really doing a lot. And so yeah, if the lane is hard, you buy more regen, and that's exactly what Whitemon did. He just bought more Tangos and more Salves. Then he got Boots. Sometimes people will upgrade the Orb of Venom into Corrosion if they're having a really good start. It can be nice, but it's honestly not the most common build. What's more common is either literally no upgrade, no items until you straight up get the shard. People will buy nothing until the shard. Occasionally you will see raindrops and a magic wand to help out with the mana problems that Ricky will inevitably have, or mana boots because mana problems that will later build into Aether Lens. But yeah, you get the shard at minute 15 and you are the most devastating hero in the game. And I'm not saying that, like Ricky is actually, every time I play against or with this hero, I'm blown away with how low cooldown Sleeping Dart is. And like the talents for Smokescreen are insane. This hero is straight up wild. And finally, the last build we're going to talk about is No One's Drow. So his starting items were Circlet, into Stick, into Slippers. Of course, aiming towards that Wraith Band, not actually starting with Tangos this game, starting with, as I said, the Circlet, Stick, Slippers, into Quelling Blade, and a Branch. These are his 5 starting items. From there, he instantly ships out Tangos, upgrades his Wraith Band, buys Boots, and then Raindrops. From there, you're going to pick up Treads into a Dragonlance, of course just maxing out on attack range and agility. After that, honestly the build switches up a little bit from player to player and from game to game, but he opted for the Pike. He purchased a late shard this game, going for it after the Pike. Some people will buy it after Dragonlance, some people like to go Dragonlance into Yasha into shard. It kind of just depends on the game. If the enemy team has a lot of heroes that are very HP regen reliant, such as Morphling or Leshrac with Bloodstone or Razor with Bloodstone, buying an earlier shard is definitely good to shut down the regen of these heroes. So yeah, he goes the Pike into Manta, of course with the shard, and then eventually it's just all about staying alive. He buys Silver Edge into BKB into Linken's. No joke, a Shadowblade, BKB, Linken's. Completely playing around the fact that Drow does way too much damage as long as there's no one on top of you and you're not getting disabled. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching the 5 most broken builds, the best item builds to gain MMR. I literally selected these builds specifically to help you guys gain MMR, as I think they are genuinely the most powerful builds in Dota right now, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!